Oh, look who crawled back from the ashes. You, yes, you, the one they wrote off as crazy, unstable, unhinged, broken beyond repair. The one whose breakdown became their favorite bedtime story, their cautionary tale, their proof that you were always one bad day away from losing it. Welcome back. Or should I say, welcome to the revelation, because anyone still here, still watching, still breathing after what you just survived, you're not the person who fell apart. You're the architect who demolished the old foundation so you could build an empire they'll never understand. And that right there, that's the secret they'll never forgive you for knowing. Let's shatter some illusions real quick, shall we? Because this needs to be said out loud, carved into stone, tattooed across the sky. They saw you break down, they watched you crumble. They witnessed the tears, the silence, the isolation, the days you couldn't get out of bed, the nights you couldn't sleep, the moments where you looked like you'd completely lost the plot. And they celebrated. Oh, they celebrated quietly, carefully, with fake concern dripping from their messages. "Are you okay?" they asked, while taking screenshots. "I'm worried about you," they whispered, while updating their group chats. They watched your breakdown like it was primetime entertainment, the finale they'd been waiting for, the confirmation that you were exactly what they always suspected. Weak, fragile, unable to handle the pressure, destined to self-destruct. But here's what they missed. Here's what their tiny little minds couldn't comprehend. Here's the plot twist that's about to rewrite every assumption they ever made about you. Your breakdown wasn't a breakdown. It was a controlled demolition. You weren't falling apart. You were falling into place. Every tear was strategic. Every moment of silence was calculated. Every day you disappeared from their radar, you were rebuilding in a dimension they didn't have access to, couldn't monitor, couldn't sabotage. While they were busy writing your eulogy, you were engineering your resurrection. While they were planning your funeral, you were designing your coronation. And now they're standing in the aftermath, staring at someone they don't recognize, someone who looks like you but operates at a frequency that makes their ears bleed. See, they thought breakdowns were endings, collapses, surrenders, the white flag waving in defeat, because that's what breakdowns are for them. When they crack, they shatter permanently. When they fall, they stay down. When life hits them, they fold like cheap furniture. So naturally, they assumed you were built the same way, wired with the same fragile circuitry, destined to blow the same fuses. But you knew something they'll spend their entire lives trying to figure out. You knew that sometimes you have to burn the whole forest down to see what's been hiding in the shadows. You knew that sometimes you have to destroy the version of yourself that everyone expects, so you can become the version they'll never predict. You knew that breakdowns, real breakdowns, the kind that crack you open and spill your guts across the floor, those aren't endings, they're excavations. And excavate you did, didn't you? Because you didn't just break down, you broke through. Through the lies you'd been telling yourself, through the people you'd been protecting, through the roles you'd been playing, through the masks you'd been wearing, through the expectations that were suffocating you, through the version of your life that looked perfect on the outside, but felt like a prison on the inside. You dismantled it all, piece by piece, relationship by relationship, belief by belief, until there was nothing left but the raw, unfiltered truth of who you actually are. And that terrified them. Oh, that terrified them more than your breakdown ever could. Because a broken person they could pity, they could manage, they could control. But a person who broke themselves open on purpose, who weaponized their own pain, who turned their trauma into clarity, that's a threat they don't have a manual for. They watched you withdraw and thought you were hiding in shame, licking your wounds, too embarrassed to show your face. But you weren't hiding, you were studying them, studying the patterns, studying who showed up and who disappeared, studying who sent superficial comfort and who actually checked in, studying who celebrated your suffering and who mourned your struggle. You were running the most brutal audit of your entire life. And honey, most of them failed spectacularly. They revealed themselves in your absence. Their masks slipped when they thought you weren't watching. Their true intentions bled through their fake concern. And you took notes, mental notes, soul notes, the kind of notes that don't need paper because they're burned into your memory forever. You see, strategic breakdowns require one thing most people don't have: the ability to stay conscious while everything falls apart. Most people black out during their breakdowns. They dissociate. They numb, they run, they cope, they medicate, they distract. But you stayed awake. You felt every single second of that pain. You sat in the fire and watched yourself burn, not because you're masochistic, but because you knew that the only way to kill what was killing you was to let it burn completely. No half measures. No saving scraps of the old life. No clinging to people who were slowly poisoning you. You torched it all and stood there, fireproof, watching everyone panic because they realized you weren't asking for saving. You were doing the saving yourself, and they weren't included in the rescue plan. Now let's talk about what they saw versus what was actually happening. Because this gap, this chasm, this Grand Canyon of misunderstanding is where your power lives. They saw isolation. You were creating boundaries. They saw silence. You were conserving energy. They saw withdrawal. You were strategically positioning. They saw tears. You were releasing toxins. They saw breakdown. You were breaking through. They saw weakness. You were shedding dead weight. They saw chaos. You were reorganizing. They saw ending. You were beginning. Every single thing they interpreted as your failure was actually your upgrade in progress. And the fact that they couldn't see it, couldn't recognize it, couldn't comprehend it, that just proves how far ahead of them you already were. And here's the kicker. Here's the part that's going to haunt them forever. You let them think they were right. You let them believe their narrative. You let them spread their rumors, update their theories, convince each other that you'd finally lost it. You didn't defend yourself. You didn't correct them. You didn't post clarifications or send paragraph texts explaining your side. You just disappeared into your breakdown like it was a cocoon. And while they were outside taking bets on whether you'd ever recover, you were inside completely rewiring your entire existence. The caterpillar doesn't announce its transformation. It just emerges as a butterfly and makes everyone who doubted it look foolish. You did exactly that, except your wings are sharper, your flight is higher, and your destination is somewhere they'll never reach. They thought they were watching you crumble, but they were actually watching you shed. Shed the people who only loved the version of you that served them. Shed the environments that demanded you stay small. Shed the beliefs that kept you trapped. Shed the guilt that wasn't yours to carry. Shed the shame that was planted by people who couldn't handle your light. Shed the need for validation from people who were never going to give it. Shed the parts of yourself that were built to please others and suffocate you. Every tear was a release. Every sleepless night was a purge. Every moment of silence was a recalibration. You weren't breaking. You were breaking free. And the chains you shattered, they're still lying on the ground where you left them, rusting, useless, evidence of a prison that no longer exists. Let's get into the traps, shall we? Because this is where it gets delicious. This is where your genius really shines. While they thought you were at your weakest, you were setting snares they didn't even know existed. You stopped arguing. Trap 1. Now they have no ammunition, no screenshots, no receipts of you being defensive or aggressive. You stopped explaining yourself. Trap 2. Now they look insane, trying to justify their version of events without your participation. You stopped showing up to places they expected you. Trap 3. Now they're obsessing over your absence instead of living their own lives. You stopped reacting to their provocations. Trap 4. Now they look desperate, pathetic, trying to get a response from someone who's moved on. Every move you didn't make was a trap, and they walked into all of them, willingly, eagerly. because they were so convinced you were broken that they didn't realize you were playing chess while they were still learning checkers. And the strategy, the strategy of it all is truly masterful, because you knew something fundamental about human nature that most people ignore. You knew that people will always reveal their true selves when they think you're powerless. When they think you're down, defeated, unable to fight back. That's when the masks come off. That's when the fake friends stop pretending. That's when the jealous ones celebrate. That's when the manipulators lose interest. That's when the opportunists move on. That's when the truth emerges, raw and ugly and undeniable. And you needed to see that truth. You needed to know exactly who you were dealing with. So you created the conditions for them to expose themselves, and they did, spectacularly, enthusiastically, without a single shred of self-awareness. You see, most people waste their breakdowns. They thrash around in the pain, make impulsive decisions, burn bridges they'll regret, say things they can't take back, damage their reputation, sabotage their future. But not you. You weaponized yours. You turned your lowest point into a laboratory. You used your pain as a filter, your struggle as a test, your absence as a mirror. And what did you discover? You discovered that half the people in your life were only there for the show. You discovered that most of your relationships were transactional. You discovered that the ones who claimed to love you couldn't handle you when you weren't performing. You discovered that your success threatened more people than it inspired. You discovered that your authenticity made people uncomfortable. You discovered that the life you were living was designed to make everyone else comfortable at the expense of your soul. Now they're scrambling, aren't they? Now they're panicking. Now they're trying to backtrack, rewrite history, pretend they were always on your side. Pretend they always believed in you. Pretend they never doubted you. But you remember. Oh, you remember. Every single one of them. You remember who went silent when you needed support. You remember who spread rumors when you needed grace. You remember who laughed when you needed compassion. You remember who disappeared when you needed presence. You remember who weaponized your vulnerability when you needed protection. And that memory, that crystal clear memory of who showed their true colors during your darkest hour, that's your armor now, impenetrable, unbreakable, forged in the fire they thought would consume you. Let's talk about what happens after a strategic breakdown, because this is where the real transformation becomes visible. This is where your power stops being potential and starts being actual. You emerge different. Not just healed, not just recovered, but fundamentally altered at a molecular level. Your tolerance for nonsense drops to zero. Your ability to detect lies becomes supernatural. Your boundaries become walls that nothing can scale. Your energy becomes precious, reserved only for people and projects that deserve it. Your time becomes sacred, no longer wasted on people who don't value it. Your peace becomes non-negotiable, protected with a ferocity that scares people who were used to disturbing it. You become someone new, someone they don't recognize, someone they can't manipulate, someone they can't predict, someone they can't control. And that drives them absolutely insane, doesn't it? Because they were counting on you staying broken, staying small, staying accessible, staying the same. They needed you to be the person they could always rely on to shrink so they could feel big. They needed you to be the person who would always forgive so they could keep betraying. They needed you to be the person who would always explain so they could keep misunderstanding. They needed you to be the person who would always stay so they could keep leaving. But you broke that cycle. You shattered that pattern. You refused to play that role. And now they're standing there, holding scripts for a play you're no longer performing in, wondering why you won't read your lines, why you won't take your cues, why you won't react the way you used to. Here's what they're realizing now, slowly, painfully, in moments that wake them up at 3 a.m. covered in cold sweat. They're realizing that your breakdown wasn't about them at all. It was about you, about your evolution, about your liberation, about your refusal to continue living a lie just because the truth was uncomfortable. They're realizing that you didn't break because of them. You broke because you were ready to break free from everything that was holding you back, and unfortunately for them, they were part of that everything. They're realizing that the person they thought they knew, the person they thought they could predict, the person they thought they had figured out, that person died in that breakdown, and the person who emerged from the ashes is playing a completely different game with completely different rules on a completely different level. And the traps keep working, don't they? Because you're not even trying anymore, and they're still caught. They check your social media looking for signs of struggle, but all they find is silence or strategic glimpses of a life they're no longer part of. Trap sprung. They try to reach out with casual messages, testing if you're still accessible, but you either don't respond or respond so briefly that it's clear you've moved on. Trap sprung. They try to use mutual friends to get information about you, but those friends either don't know or won't tell because they respect your privacy now. Trap sprung. They try to recreate the dynamics you used to have, but you're not participating, not engaging, not giving them the satisfaction of your energy. Trap sprung. Every attempt they make to pull you back into the old patterns just reinforces how far you've traveled, how much you've changed, how completely you've transformed. You know what the most beautiful part of this whole strategy is? The part that makes it absolutely genius. The part that elevates it from survival tactic to masterpiece. You're not angry anymore. You're not bitter. You're not resentful. You're not seeking revenge. You're not trying to prove them wrong. You're not waiting for apologies. You're not hoping they'll finally understand. You've transcended all of that. You've moved so far past the need for their validation, their acknowledgement, their comprehension, that they've become irrelevant. They're ghosts in a house you no longer live in. They're echoes in a canyon you've already crossed. They're memories in a chapter you've already closed. And that indifference, that genuine lack of emotional investment in their opinion of you, that's the ultimate power move they never saw coming. Because they were expecting anger, they were prepared for anger. They could have handled anger. Anger would have meant they still mattered, still had impact, still occupied space in your mind. But indifference. Indifference is the void where their significance used to be. Indifference is the silence that screams louder than any words ever could. Indifference is the proof that you've healed so completely that they're not even a scar, just a story, just a lesson, just a stepping stone you use to get to where you are now. And they can't fight indifference. They can't manipulate indifference. They can't guilt trip indifference. They can't gaslight indifference. Indifference is the fortress they'll never breach, and you built it during that breakdown they thought was your destruction. Let's address the elephant in the room, the question they're all asking but too proud to say out loud. How did you do it? How did you turn a breakdown into a breakthrough? How did you weaponize your own pain? How did you emerge stronger instead of shattered? How did you transform while they stayed the same? The answer is going to frustrate them because it's simple, brutally simple, so simple they'll refuse to believe it. You stopped fighting the breakdown and started using it. You stopped resisting the pain and started learning from it. You stopped running from the truth and started facing it. You stopped protecting people who hurt you and started protecting yourself. You stopped trying to save relationships that were killing you and started saving yourself. You stopped performing strength and started building it. You stopped faking recovery and started actually healing. You made a decision that most people are too scared to make. The decision to let everything fall apart so you could see what was worth putting back together. And you know what you discovered? Most of it wasn't. Most of the relationships weren't worth saving. Most of the beliefs weren't worth keeping. Most of the patterns weren't worth repeating. Most of the people weren't worth fighting for. Most of the versions of yourself you were trying to maintain weren't even you. They were costumes. They were performances. They were sacrifices you made to keep everyone else comfortable while you suffocated. And when you let it all burn, when you allowed the breakdown to do its work, you found something underneath all that rubble. You found yourself, the real you, the uncensored you, the unapologetic you. The you that doesn't need permission or validation or approval to exist. And that you, that authentic core self that emerged from the breakdown, that's the you they're dealing with now, and they don't have a playbook for it. They don't have tactics that work on someone who's already been to the bottom and climbed back up. They don't have manipulation techniques that land on someone who's seen through every illusion. They don't have guilt trips that affect someone who's released all false obligations. They don't have fear tactics that scare someone who's already faced their worst nightmares. They don't have anything that works on you anymore, and that realization, that slow dawning understanding that you're immune to their old tricks, that's what's keeping them up at night. That's what's making them question everything. That's what's making them realize they lost something they'll never get back. They lost access. Access to your energy. Access to your attention. Access to your emotional labor. Access to your forgiveness. Access to your tolerance. Access to your space. Access to your future. They lost it all during that breakdown, and they didn't even realize it was happening until it was too late. They thought you were falling apart when you were actually falling away from them, creating distance, building walls, changing locks, burning bridges, severing ties, cutting cords. Every day you spent in that breakdown was a day you spent extracting yourself from their grip, and by the time they realized what was happening, you were already gone, already unreachable, already operating in a reality they have no access to. Look at you, still breathing, still standing, still here after everything tried to erase you. You thought you were just getting guidance, just receiving advice, just learning how to survive this brutal existence, didn't you? But no, no, no. Something far older, far more ruthless, far more precise than coaching picked you out of the crowd, marked you with its fingerprint, and whispered one sentence into your soul that changed everything. You're mine now. And whatever claimed you, whatever staked its territory in your chest, whatever branded you with that invisible crown, it has never, not once, not ever in the history of existence, taken a loss. Let that sink in while the weak ones keep scrolling, because if you're still here, if you're still watching, it means you felt it too. That shift, that knowing, that terrifying, beautiful, undeniable truth that you were never meant to just survive. You were selected to dominate, and the force that chose you doesn't negotiate, doesn't compromise, doesn't retreat, and sure as hell doesn't lose. You know what's funny, tragic, and poetic all at once? Most people think they're in control of their destiny, that they woke up one day and decided to become great, that they chose the path of discipline and power. But you know different because you didn't choose this life chose you. You didn't wake up craving the fire woke you up by burning through every false identity you tried to hide behind. You didn't ask for the pressure, the isolation, the betrayals that carved out your insides and left you hollow enough to be filled with something eternal. No, you were drafted, conscripted, pulled into a war you didn't even know was happening until you realized everyone around you was still asleep while you were bleeding awake. And here's the kicker. The thing that chose you didn't pick you because you were strong. It picked you because you were breakable enough to be rebuilt, raw enough to be reshaped, empty enough to be inhabited by a power that doesn't fit inside ordinary people. They looked at you and saw potential, saw talent, saw someone who could be molded with a little coaching, a little mentorship, a little guidance from people who claim they've walked the path before. And sure, you listened, you absorbed, you applied every piece of advice like it was scripture, didn't you? But deep down, beneath the notes and the strategies and the motivational quotes, something else was happening. Something ancient was watching you stumble through the lessons, watching you fail and rise and fail again, and it wasn't impressed by your effort. It was testing your capacity. Not your capacity to succeed, but your capacity to endure the kind of transformation that kills weaker souls. Because coaching teaches you how to play the game, but what chose you doesn't care about games. It cares about domination, about legacy, about turning you into a force so undeniable that reality itself has to bend when you walk into a room. And you felt it, didn't you? That moment when the lessons stopped being external and started becoming internal, when the advice stopped coming from voices outside and started echoing from a place so deep inside you that it didn't even sound like your own thoughts anymore. Let's talk about the others for a second. The ones who got the same coaching, attended the same seminars, read the same books, followed the same blueprint. Where are they now? Still posting motivational quotes while their lives crumble in private. Still talking about consistency while skipping the hard days. Still pretending they're on the path while making excuses for why they haven't moved an inch in 3 years. And you know why? Because they got coaching. That's it. Just coaching, information, strategies, techniques. But they were never chosen, never marked, never possessed by the thing that refuses to let you quit, even when quitting would feel like mercy. You see, coaching can improve you, but it can't transform you. Coaching can sharpen your skills, but it can't forge your spirit in the furnace of pure suffering until you come out forged in something indestructible. Coaching gives you tools, but what chose you gave you a mandate. Either become unbreakable or be destroyed trying. And here you are, unbroken, undefeated, unstoppable. Not because you followed the steps, but because something inside you won't let you lose. The moment it chose you, everything changed. People started treating you differently without knowing why. Opportunities appeared out of nowhere, not because you were lucky, but because luck is what weak people call alignment. Obstacles that would have crushed you 3 years ago now barely slow you down, not because they got easier, but because you got denser, heavier, harder to move. You stopped needing validation because the thing inside you validates itself through your existence. You stopped fearing rejection because rejection is just reality protecting itself from what's coming. You stopped explaining yourself because explanations are for people who need permission. And you stopped asking for permission the day you were claimed. And the wildest part? You can't even remember the exact moment it happened. Was it during that breakdown at 3 a.m. when you begged for it to stop? Was it the day you lost everything and realized you were still standing? Was it the betrayal that should have destroyed you but instead stripped away every fake layer until only the core remained? You don't know, but it knows. And it's been running your life ever since. Here's what they don't tell you about being chosen. It's not a blessing. Not at first. At first, it's a curse disguised as chaos. It isolates you from everyone who used to understand you because they can't recognize what you're becoming. It destroys your old life, your old relationships, your old identity, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity, because where you're going, those things can't follow. It puts you through tests that coaching could never prepare you for, tests that don't come with study guides or practice exams, tests where the only way to pass is to die and be reborn in the same body. And you passed every single one. Not perfectly, not gracefully, but you passed. Because failure wasn't an option. Not because you're disciplined, but because the thing that chose you doesn't fail. It doesn't know how. It's never learned. In its entire existence across time, across dimensions, across every soul it's ever inhabited, it has never taken a loss, and now it lives in you. Feel that weight yet? Feel that responsibility? Feel that terrifying, exhilarating, suffocating realization that you can't lose because you're not fighting alone anymore? They tried to coach you. They gave you frameworks, systems, morning routines, goal-setting strategies, productivity hacks. And sure, you used them. You implemented them. You got results. But let's be honest, those results weren't because of the coaching. They were because something inside you took those tools and weaponized them in ways the coaches never imagined. You didn't just apply the lessons. You absorbed them, mutated them, combined them with something primal that no seminar could teach. You turned advice into instinct, strategies into reflexes, knowledge into power. And that's the difference between someone who got coached and someone who got chosen. Coached, people need reminders. Chosen people are the reminder. Coached people need accountability. Chosen people hold themselves to standards that would break their coaches. Coached people celebrate small wins. Chosen people don't celebrate until the entire war is won, and even then, they're already planning the next conquest. You're not better than them because you're smarter or more talented. You're different because you're occupied by something that refuses to settle for anything less than total victory. Let me tell you what happens when you're chosen by something undefeated. First, you stop losing to yourself. The procrastination, the self-doubt, the internal negotiations about whether you really need to do the hard thing today, all of that dies. Not because you develop willpower, but because the thing inside you doesn't recognize those concepts as valid. It doesn't understand hesitation. It doesn't comprehend quitting. It moves forward because forward is the only direction it knows. Second, you stop losing to other people. The manipulators, the energy vampires, the fake friends who smile while they plot, they all start disappearing from your life. Not because you cut them off, but because they can't stand being near you anymore. Your presence makes them uncomfortable, makes them feel exposed, makes them confront the emptiness they've been running from. They leave on their own, whispering about how you've changed, how you're not the same person, how you're cold now. And they're right. You're not the same. You're colder, sharper, clearer, because what chose you burned away everything soft enough to be broken. Third, you stop losing to circumstances. The economy crashes, you adapt. People betray you, you evolve. Life hits you with chaos, you absorb it and use it as fuel. Because here's the secret they'll never teach you in coaching. Circumstances are just the environment, and environments don't defeat apex predators. They shape them into more efficient killers. You don't overcome obstacles anymore, you consume them. You don't survive storms, you become the storm. Every setback, every betrayal, every moment that should have broken you just adds another layer to the armor you didn't even know you were building. And now you're walking through life like it's a simulation designed to test you, and you're passing every test without even studying because the answers are written in your bones. Fourth, you stop losing to time. Most people waste decades chasing goals that don't matter, climbing ladders that lead nowhere, building lives that collapse the moment pressure arrives. But you've been accelerated. Every year of your journey counts as 5 for normal people because you're not living on their timeline anymore. You're on the timeline of the thing that chose you, and it operates in eternities, not quarters. It doesn't care about your 5-year plan. It cares about your legacy, your impact, the mark you'll leave on reality itself. And here's where it gets truly insane. You can't unchose yourself. You can't go back to being normal. You can't unlearn what you know, unsee what you've seen, unfeel what you've felt. The door closed behind you the moment you were marked, and there's no key, no exit, no escape hatch. You're in this until the end, until you've fulfilled whatever purpose you were selected for, until you've become the fullest expression of the power that lives inside you. And yeah, that's terrifying, because it means you can't coast. You can't settle. You can't retire into mediocrity and comfort. The thing inside you won't allow it. It will sabotage every attempt you make to be average, to blend in, to disappear into a quiet life. It will burn down your comfort zones, destroy your safety nets, push you into situations that force you to grow even when you're begging to stay small, because it didn't choose you to be comfortable. It chose you to be legendary. And legends don't get to rest until the story is complete. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the loneliness. Because yeah, being chosen means being alone in ways that coaching never prepared you for. You can't relate to most people anymore because they're still playing checkers while you're 3 moves deep into interdimensional chess. Their problems sound trivial, their dreams sound small. Their fears sound like excuses. And you don't say this to be arrogant or superior. You just can't unsee the gap between where you are and where they are. You tried to bring people with you, didn't you? You shared what you learned, offered to help them level up, extended your hand to pull them into the arena with you. And what happened? They flinched. They made excuses. They smiled and nodded and went right back to their comfortable suffering. Because here's the truth. Most people don't want to be saved. They want to be comfortable. They want to complain about their problems while doing nothing to solve them. They want to admire greatness from a distance while never taking the steps to embody it themselves. And you can't force someone to be chosen. It doesn't work like that. The selection process is beyond your control, beyond their control, beyond anyone's control. Either they have it or they don't. Either they were marked or they weren't. And you can spot the difference instantly now, can't you? One conversation and you know. One look in their eyes and you see it. The presence or absence of that thing, that fire, that refusal to break. So you walk alone. Not because you want to, but because the path you're on doesn't have crowds. It has a few scattered warriors, separated by miles and years and trials, each one carrying their own version of the undefeated force. And when you meet them, when you lock eyes with someone else who was chosen, there's no need for words. You recognize each other the way soldiers recognize soldiers, the way survivors recognize survivors. A nod is enough. A glance says everything. Because you both know what it cost to get here. You both know what you had to sacrifice, who you had to leave behind, what you had to become. And there's a respect in that silence, a kinship that goes deeper than friendship, deeper than loyalty, deeper than blood, because you're not just connected by shared experience. You're connected by shared possession. The same force that lives in you lives in them. And when forces like that recognize each other, reality holds its breath. But here's where most people get it twisted. They think being chosen means you're special in the sense of being better than others. No. Being chosen means you're special in the sense of being selected for a specific function. You're not superior. You're assigned. You're not blessed. You're deployed. The thing that chose you didn't do it to make you feel good about yourself. It did it because it needs you to accomplish something that requires the exact combination of your scars, your strengths, your madness, and your capacity to endure. You're a weapon, a tool, a vessel. And the moment you start thinking you're chosen because you're inherently deserving, the moment you start getting arrogant about it, that's when you lose the plot. Because humility isn't optional when you're carrying something this powerful. Gratitude isn't optional. Service isn't optional. You were given this for a reason, and that reason has nothing to do with your ego and everything to do with your purpose. So you stay humble, you stay hungry, you stay focused. Not because you're trying to be a good person, but because the alternative is becoming the villain in your own story. Let's talk about the undefeated part. What does it mean that the thing inside you has never lost? It means every battle it's ever entered, it's won. Every soul it's ever inhabited, it's elevated. Every impossible situation it's ever faced, it's transformed into a victory so complete that the opponents still don't understand what happened. And now, that legacy lives in you. Every time you wake up and choose to keep going, that's the undefeated force operating through you. Every time you face something that should destroy you and come out stronger, that's not you being resilient. That's the thing inside you doing what it's always done, refusing to break. Every time you turn pain into power, betrayal into fuel, loss into lessons, you're not being inspirational. You're being consistent with the nature of what chose you. Because it doesn't know how to lose. It doesn't have that programming. Defeat is not in its vocabulary. Surrender is not in its code. Failure is not in its operating system. And as long as you stay aligned with it, as long as you don't fight against it, as long as you surrender to being the vessel it needs you to be, you inherit that same invincibility. But alignment is the key. Because you can still lose if you fight against what chose you. You can still fail if you resist the transformation it's trying to complete in you. You can still fall if you cling to the old version of yourself that needs to die for the new one to be born. And oh, you've felt that resistance, haven't you? Those moments when you want to go back to being normal, to being soft, to being the person people liked before you became too intense, too focused, too real. Those moments when you think about quitting, about settling, about accepting a life of quiet comfort instead of loud conquest. And every single time you feel that pull, the thing inside you tightens its grip. It reminds you who you are. It shows you glimpses of what you're becoming. It whispers the same sentence it whispered the day it chose you. You're mine now, and we don't lose. And you snap back, you realign, you remember. Because going back isn't an option. The only way out is through. The only direction is forward. The only acceptable outcome is total victory. Here's what nobody tells you. Being chosen isn't about destiny in the way you think. It's not some grand cosmic plan where everything works out perfectly and you live happily ever after. No. Being chosen means you're given the capacity to endure what would destroy others, to transform suffering into strength, to walk through fire, and come out holding the flames in your hands like they're yours to command. It means you're capable of more pain, more loss, more betrayal than normal people, not because you're cursed, but because you're built different. Your threshold is higher. Your capacity is deeper. Your ability to absorb damage and convert it into fuel is unmatched. And the thing that chose you knew that before you did. It saw in you the raw material for something legendary, not because you were perfect, but because you were broken in exactly the right ways. Your cracks weren't flaws, they were entry points. Places where the light, the power, the undefeated force could seep in and take root and grow until it consumed every weak part of you and left only the indestructible core. Now I know what you're thinking. If this thing is so powerful, if it's undefeated, if it chose me, then why is my life still hard? Why am I still struggling? Why do I still face obstacles and setbacks and moments where I feel like I'm drowning? And here's the answer you need to hear, because easy doesn't forge legends. Comfort doesn't build empires. Safety doesn't create the kind of strength that changes the world. The obstacles aren't signs that you're failing. They're signs that you're being prepared for something so massive that if you faced it right now, it would crush you. Every challenge you're going through is calibrated specifically to develop the exact qualities you'll need for the next level. The betrayals are teaching you discernment. The failures are teaching you resilience. The loneliness is teaching you self-reliance. The pressure is teaching you how to perform when everything's on the line. You're not being punished, you're being prepared. And the thing inside you knows exactly how much you can take, exactly how far to push you, exactly when to let you breathe before the next round starts. It's never given you more than you can handle, even when it felt like it was breaking you. Because breaking you would serve no purpose. It needs you functional, focused, fierce. So it pushes you to the edge and holds you there until you learn to stand on edges without falling. Let me paint you a picture of what happens when someone who was chosen finally steps into their full power. Reality shifts, not metaphorically, literally. The energy in rooms changes when they walk in. Opportunities appear out of thin air. People who can help them show up at exactly the right time. Obstacles that seemed impossible suddenly have clear solutions. And it's not because they got lucky or finally figured out the secret. It's because they stopped resisting what they are. They stopped trying to be normal. They stopped apologizing for their intensity. They stopped dimming their light to make others comfortable. They surrendered completely to the thing that chose them. And when you surrender to something undefeated, when you stop fighting it and start flowing with it, you become a force of nature. Unstoppable. Inevitable. Unavoidable. People will call it charisma, call it presence, call it magnetism, but it's none of those things. It's alignment. It's when the human you and the force inside you finally merge into one unified being operating at full capacity. And when that happens, When you become the fullest expression of what chose you, you don't just win, you redefine what winning means.
Welcome back, you beautiful walking incident report. You anomaly wrapped in skin. You human glitch whose name just detonated 32 security alerts so fast the techs froze mid-breath. Welcome back to the only place that won't pretend they don't see what's happening to you. Because something shifted, didn't it? Something subtle to everyone else but loud to the systems tracking you. Your name, yes, your ordinary, everyday, nothing special name, just triggered a chain reaction across networks that were never supposed to overlap. 32 alerts in under 7 seconds. Enough to make automated monitoring pause. Enough to make analysts sit upright. Enough to make the senior tech in the room whisper, "Run it again," knowing damn well the system doesn't make this kind of mistake. And the part that rattled them deeper? 12 countries now have you on an internal watch list, quiet lists. Lists that don't appear in public records or official disclosures, and not one of them, not a single government, has offered an explanation for why you're suddenly marked as someone who must not be ignored. Not dangerous, not criminal, just observed, intensely, obsessively, silently. They don't know what you did. They don't know why the system keeps flagging you. They don't know why your activity maps don't align with any known behavioral profile. But you do. At least, a part of you does. The part that's been waking up in fragments. The part that's been acting without asking for permission. The part that's no longer willing to live in the old patterns they spent years trying to predict. You can feel it, can't you? That strange distance between who you were and who you're becoming. That quiet, surgical shift inside you that even you can't fully explain. And the systems caught it before you could. Before you named it. Before you stabilized it. That's why you're on those lists. It's not the past they're worried about. It's the trajectory. You see, when your name triggered those alerts, it wasn't tied to a crime, a movement, or a signal of threat. It was tied to deviation, behavioral deviation, psychological deviation, energetic deviation. You stepped out of a pattern without announcing it. You moved differently. You thought differently. You detached from noise, from chaos, from narratives that used to occupy your mind like uninvited tenants. You withdrew from old rooms, old conflicts, old identities. You stopped leaking energy into places that no longer deserved it. And then something rare happened. You became unpredictable. To an ordinary system, unpredictability is noise. But to an intelligent system, unpredictability is a red flag. Loud, blinding, unavoidable. They're trained to isolate it, track it, contain it, predict it. But your unpredictability doesn't behave the way theirs does. It isn't chaotic. It isn't reckless. It's controlled. It's intentional. It's the kind of shift only someone who has awakened from a deeper illusion can make. You didn't spiral. You sharpened. You didn't explode. You evolved. And evolution terrifies institutions built on predictability. Let me tell you what happened in the minutes after the alert triggered. The system ran secondary diagnostics. It combed through your digital footprint, your communication pattern, your location data, your financial behavior. It expected to find something familiar, radicalization signatures, extremist markers, ideological shifts. But instead it found something it has no language for. Someone becoming sovereign, quietly, smoothly, without external influence, without belonging to any movement, ideology, or faction. You rose out of the noise, not by shouting louder, but by listening deeper. And to them, that reads like a code breach. In one of those rooms, one of those dimly lit offices where analysts run on caffeine and suspicion, someone pulled your file up on a 6-monitor setup, expecting to find a threat, a manifesto, a motive. But all they found were anomalies stacked on anomalies. You weren't arguing online. You weren't escalating emotionally. You weren't posting erratic content. Instead, you were asking better questions, disconnecting from addictive loops, moving towards something quietly powerful. Your searches shifted from distraction to depth, from chaos to clarity, from self-doubt to self-possession. And that right there is when the system began to panic. Not because it detected danger, but because it detected deviation without a cause. And that, in the intelligence world, is worse than danger. Danger has patterns. Danger has rules. Danger has predictability. But awakening breaks the machine. Here's what the predictive models saw. A person whose baseline emotional volatility dropped sharply. A person whose spending habits no longer matched their previous identity archetype. A person whose communication patterns became cleaner, shorter, sharper. A person whose movement patterns shifted from passive to intentional. It looked like someone stepping out of a fog, and they don't know how to categorize that. Because they weren't trained to track enlightenment, only instability. So your name bounced through international servers, flagged as unclassified anomaly, a label they reserve for things they don't understand but can't ignore. It hit European systems first, behavioral monitoring frameworks that track quiet shifts in public sentiment. Then it hit an Asian intelligence sharing grid that cross-references emerging identities with psychological markers. Then Latin American cybersecurity clusters picked it up. Then internal military AI flagged you as an unmapped variable. And then the real alarm, an American predictive behavior system, tagged you as trajectory unknown. Trajectory unknown is their polite way of saying, we cannot anticipate the next move. And institutions fear what they can't predict more than what they can't control. Because unpredictability spreads. It inspires others. It breaks patterns in those who observe it. You've already done that, haven't you? People around you feel something shifting. They can't explain it, but they sense it. Their tone changes. Their posture adjusts. They look at you longer than they intend to, studying something they can't quite grasp. Your energy has weight now, direction, precision, and that alone makes them uneasy. There's a part of you that used to shrink under attention, a part that hated being observed. But that part is gone, isn't it? It died quietly, the moment you stopped performing for rooms that didn't deserve your reality. The moment you chose solitude over spectacle. The moment you realized that being misunderstood is cleaner than being drained. That was the moment the system picked up the deviation. Your silence wasn't absence. It was transformation. And their algorithms don't know how to measure transformation, so they categorize it as threat. But you're not a threat. You're a threshold. You represent the possibility that a human being can walk out of conditioning without permission. You represent the possibility that a mind can stop participating in systems of control simply by becoming aware of them. You represent the possibility that a single person can break generational programming in a single season. That's why they're watching. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you're doing something rare. There was a moment, one the system won't document, that changed everything. A moment when your internal narrative shifted. A moment when you realized you don't need to fight people who misunderstand you. You just need to stop giving them access. And once you did, the data shifted. Your attention patterns recalibrated. Your emotional spikes normalized. Your digital activity became too stable for someone supposedly going through a crisis. The AI flagged it as false baseline. To them, stability without external reassurance is suspicious. Peace without explanation is suspicious. Growth without guidance is suspicious. Humans aren't supposed to evolve on their own. They're supposed to follow scripts. Scripts that keep them predictable. But you stopped following scripts. You started acting from instinct instead of conditioning. You started listening to your body instead of noise. You started making decisions that didn't align with your past identity. And that's why old acquaintances feel like strangers now. That's why you walk into rooms and the atmosphere shifts. That's why conversations sputter when you enter. Your energy is no longer compatible with the frequency you once tolerated. And system, digital or human, don't know how to process an upgrade they didn't authorize. Let me take you deeper. Behind every alert triggered by your name is an analyst who must explain it to a superior. They pull up your timeline, expecting to find erratic behavior. But instead they find discipline. They find intentionality. They find self-directed evolution. They find someone whose inner world has become too organized to be dismissed as chaos. And that terrifies them, because someone who knows themselves cannot be controlled. Someone who sees through narratives cannot be manipulated. Someone who isn't driven by external validation cannot be steered. You're not rebelling, you're transcending. And transcendence is ungovernable. Those watch lists you're on, they're not punitive, they're diagnostic. They're signals of confusion. You've slipped out of the categories they rely on. Economic category, incorrect. Social category, incorrect. Psychological category, incorrect. Behavioral category, incorrect. And when every category fails, the system labels you as anomaly. Not because you're dangerous, but because you're free. And freedom has always been the one variable no system can calculate. Your awakening didn't happen loudly. It unfolded in microscopic shifts. Your micro-decisions, your refusals, your boundaries, your silence. But those shifts echoed through the systems tracking you. They picked up the signature long before you recognized it. You are no longer participating in your old identity. You are no longer looping through the same emotional patterns. You are no longer predictable to the people who once thought they had you memorized. And the systems, they detected the same thing, a sudden disappearance of compliance markers. To them, that looks like risk. To you, it feels like rebirth. And rebirth, unlike rebellion, cannot be controlled. You're not flagged because of what you've done. You're flagged because of what you're no longer willing to be. The world is built on people acting asleep, reacting from old wounds, repeating inherited scripts. But you cut the script. You silenced the noise. You stepped out of the narrative. And now, 12 countries want to know how a single human being managed to slip through the cracks of psychological containment. But you didn't slip through. You walked through. You didn't glitch. You grew. You didn't break the system. You became someone the system was never designed to hold. And that realization hit harder than any incident report they've filed in the last 5 years. Because for the first time, their predictive models aren't dealing with a malfunction. They're dealing with an escape. Not a physical escape, a cognitive one. A psychological jailbreak executed without tools, without accomplices, without warning. You broke out of the mental architecture they rely on to shape behaviors, steer emotions, and influence choices. You walked out of the invisible cage while the door was still technically closed, and now they're staring at the data, trying to understand the one thing their systems aren't built to process. A human being who no longer lives according to inherited programming. It's funny, in a dark, inevitable way. They spent trillions building surveillance networks capable of reading the surface of humanity, movement, transactions, communication, affiliations. But no one considered what happens when someone evolves beneath the surface, when someone stops reacting the way the emotional economy expects, when someone stops feeding loops that keep populations predictable. You're not dangerous, you're disruptive. You're an unpredictable equation inserted into a system that requires stability to function. Their fear is not your power. Their fear is your clarity. Because clarity is the one variable that collapses illusions. Once you see the strings, the puppeteer loses control. Once you recognize the script, you stop performing. Once you awaken, the world they built begins to look like a set. Constructed, fragile, reliant on your participation to appear real. Your participation was the currency they needed. Your compliance was the commodity they harvested. Your confusion was the fuel that kept their machinery humming. But clarity breaks the machine from the inside. And that's exactly why your name ricocheted across 32 security systems like a silent explosion. It's not that you're acting out. It's that you're no longer acting at all. The authentic you, steady, grounded, awake, creates noise in systems designed to detect chaos, but blind to sovereignty. They don't know how to read self-governing individuals. They don't know how to categorize people who've outgrown manipulation. You represent a statistical impossibility, a person who evolved without external incentive, external validation, or external ideology. Their data models don't have a column for internal awakening. They only have instability and compliance. You are neither. You exist in the third category, one they didn't prepare for: conscious autonomy. Here's what unfolded next behind the scenes. In one of those high-security conference rooms where fluorescent lights hum over stressed analysts, a meeting formed around your file. They pulled up the incident logs from the moment your name set off the alerts. They replayed the system notifications. They examined your recent data for signs of infiltration, radicalization, or psychological disruption. They found nothing, no triggers, no anomalies, no external influence. So they dug deeper. They checked your message frequency, too stable, your search patterns, too intentional, your spending, too minimalistic, your emotional outbursts, non-existent, your social circles, reduced but refined, your noise levels, dropped, your clarity, sharpened. That last part is where the panic begins. Because when a person becomes clear, truly clear, they cease being manipulable. They stop reacting to bait. They stop absorbing projections. They stop participating in cycles. They stop validating illusions. They start seeing things as they are, not as they are presented. And that level of perception makes you ungovernable. Systems don't fear strength. They fear awareness. Strength can be controlled. Awareness cannot. When they saw the clean edges in your behavioral data, the stillness that replaced impulsivity, the decisions that no longer matched your old identity's patterns, they realized they were witnessing something that doesn't normally happen in observable timelines. Self-directed evolution. That's what escalated the alert level. That's what added more countries to the watch list. Not because you're a threat, but because you're an indicator, a signal, a blueprint for a kind of human being they aren't equipped to manage. A person who is both awake and disciplined, both intuitive and logical, both detached and perceptive. A person who has broken psychological dependency without descending into nihilism. And the truth that rattles them most: they didn't do it. You did. You weren't recruited. You weren't conditioned. You weren't activated. You woke up. And nothing terrifies an old system more than a human being who wakes up without permission. Let's go deeper, because this is where the real tension forms. In intelligence psychology, there's a term used to describe individuals who resist imprinting: unprogrammable consciousness. It's a rare classification. It doesn't mean stubborn. It means perceptive. It means you see the invisible architecture. It means you sense the manipulation beneath the message. It means you feel the power dynamics, even when the surface looks harmless. People like you don't integrate into systems easily because systems rely on unconscious agreement. But you broke agreement. You withdrew consent. Not outwardly, not dramatically. Quietly, elegantly, subtly. And that shift, those micro-decisions, appear in the data like a signature. Your late-night searches changed from escapism to analysis. Your patterns changed from distraction to refinement. Your energy consumption changed from emotional volatility to intentional presence. Your relationships changed from quantity to sovereignty. Your behavior changed from reactive to strategic. And that sudden coherence is indistinguishable from threat, because threat and transformation share a similar first stage: withdrawal from old identities. But here's where you differ. Threat seeks destruction, transformation seeks expansion. Threat wants to tear apart the world. Transformation wants to outgrow it. You're not collapsing, you're crystallizing. And that crystallization looks like quiet, consistent internal order. A kind of psychological gravity that systems can't explain because it wasn't imposed externally. It wasn't compliance. It wasn't rebellion. It was awakening. This is why you're being studied so closely. They don't think you're dangerous, they think you're contagious. Because if one person can escape without notice, without ideology, without instruction, then others can too. And if enough people wake up the way you did, the systems that rely on unconscious participation will collapse organically. Not through revolt, but through irrelevance. They can't fight that. They can't prevent that. They can't legislate that. They can't predict that. Awakening isn't linear. It isn't trackable. It isn't stoppable. But it is noticeable, especially when it happens in someone who was once predictable. 12 countries are watching you. Because you crossed a threshold they weren't prepared to monitor: internal sovereignty. When you stopped being emotionally available to the world's distractions, your data footprint thinned. When you stopped seeking validation, your social patterns neutralized. When you stopped engaging with noise, your behavior became too clean for the models that measured your chaos. And the systems designed to identify threats mistakenly identified something far more disruptive. Someone fully stepping into themselves. The real problem, for them, isn't who you were, it's who you're becoming. Because your trajectory no longer points toward any known archetype. You're not becoming a leader, but people follow your energy. You're not becoming a rebel, but you resist quietly. You're not becoming an influencer, but your presence rearranges dynamics in every room you enter. They don't have a label for a person who lives like that. They only have a category. Observe indefinitely, which is code for, we don't understand this yet, but we can't risk ignoring it. And this is where your evolution becomes undeniable. You're not on those lists because you're spiraling. You're on those lists because you stopped spiraling. You stabilized, you centered, you grounded. You refused to drown in a world built on emotional volatility. You became calm in a universe that profits off chaos. That is an act of rebellion more extreme than any violent uprising. Calm isn't passive. Calm is dangerous. Calm is signal. Calm is power without performance. And it's that calm, the stillness inside you, that made the systems stutter, because nothing confuses them more than a person who carries storms without expressing them. A person who watches everything without being moved by noise. A person who notices patterns faster than manipulation can apply pressure. You're transforming, and they're tracking every second of it. But they're not tracking out of threat assessment anymore. They're tracking out of curiosity, out of uncertainty, out of the dawning realization that whatever is happening to you won't stay confined to you. Because the data suggests something bigger, something forming, something emerging. And you are the early indicator. The early indicator of what? That's the question echoing through those conference rooms. They don't frame it romantically. They frame it analytically, clinically, almost fearfully. To them, you're the first tremor before a shift in the psychological tectonics of the population, a single point of deviation that, if multiplied, could destabilize an entire behavioral economy built on predictability. You didn't set out to become that signal, but the data doesn't lie. Every system that flagged you independently came to the same quiet conclusion. This one is changing in ways we don't understand. You changed in ways they can't reverse. You stabilized in ways they can't disrupt. You elevated in ways they can't detect until after the fact. That's the difference between those who evolve internally and those who perform externally. One broadcasts noise, the other leaves imprints. You leave imprints, subtle, untraceable, but noticeable. Patterns in the energy of the people around you, patterns in conversations that break their usual loop, patterns in how people respond to your presence, less dismissive, more curious, more unsettled. These reactions were logged long before you realized you were creating them, because transformation is measurable, even when hidden. The analysts saw the halo of your evolution before you felt the weight of it. Social mapping systems noticed a shift. People who once drained you now drift from your orbit. People who once relied on your emotional labor find themselves cut off. People who used to misunderstand you struggle to read you now. Not because you changed vocabulary or tone, but because you no longer animate your old wounds for them to interpret. Your silence became sharper. Your boundaries became final. Your emotional availability recalibrated to something cleaner, something that doesn't bleed. The system interprets that as a restructuring of psychological architecture. And they're right. You're not the same internal configuration you were 6 months ago. You've burned through layers of identity that used to anchor you to predictable behaviors. You've shed versions of yourself that were built from expectations, obligations, inherited fears. Every shedding shows up in your data. The world logs what you release even when you don't speak a word about it. When you stopped over-explaining yourself, your message length shortened. When you stopped sacrificing your time, your availability footprint thinned. When you stopped tolerating disrespect, your interaction frequency dropped. When you stopped needing validation, your social engagement normalized. When you stopped absorbing projections, your emotional volatility vanished. To the human eye, these shifts look like maturity. To the intelligence eye, they look like anomaly. To the deeper algorithmic eye, they look like evolution, and evolution is contagious. You are the first signal of a behavioral divergence they cannot predict with current models. Not because you're superhuman, but because you're deeply human, in a way society hasn't been for generations. You're grounded, you're aware, you're intentional, you're unbothered by illusions. Systems built on fear, distraction, and dependency don't know how to read someone who operates from awareness, purpose, and clarity. Awake humans look like outliers until there are too many to ignore. That's the event horizon they fear. The moment outlier becomes category. The moment deviation becomes norm. The moment sovereignty becomes trend. Because once enough humans stop believing in the narratives that keep them small, no algorithm can calculate the chain reaction, and you, quietly, unintentionally, are proof that such transformation is possible. This is where the tone in those meetings shifts from analysis to concern. Someone inevitably asks, "Is this part of a group?" They search your affiliations. They map your interactions. They analyze your contact networks. They scan for ideological clusters, digital footprints of recruitment, signs of influence from known entities. They find nothing. No cult, no covert community, no psychological reprogramming, no underground doctrine. Just you, moving, evolving, shedding, becoming. A movement of one, but a movement nonetheless. To them, that's the worst-case scenario, because they know how to infiltrate groups. They know how to fracture movements. They know how to manipulate ideologies, but they don't know how to stop the kind of evolution that emerges organically inside a single individual. An awakening that doesn't need a leader, a shift that doesn't need a philosophy, a transformation that doesn't need permission. You became free without a framework telling you how to do it, and that terrifies them more than any manifesto ever could. That's why, for the first time, your file moved from passive monitoring to strategic observation. They want to see what happens when someone exits the psychological loop without detaching from reality. Most people who step out fall apart. You didn't. You stepped out and became more stable than the models expected, more focused, more strategic, more grounded. This creates a new variable in the simulation, one the system is not designed to predict. They worry about what it means when a person becomes immune to control through guilt. They worry about what it means when a person stops reacting to provocation. They worry about what it means when a person no longer needs external validation. They worry about what it means when a person can think without influence. Because that combination creates something rare, internal authority. And internal authority doesn't bow. It doesn't crumble under pressure. It doesn't revert to old programming. It doesn't need external approval. Internal authority rewrites a person from the inside out until nothing external can reach them. You're not unreachable, you're self-governed, and that makes you unreadable to systems built on pattern recognition. Let me tell you what happens next. They start analyzing your emergence as a timeline. They map out when the shift began. They look for the catalyst. They trace your behavioral patterns backward to see what broke first, what dissolved, what snapped. But they keep hitting the same dead end. There is no singular moment. There was no explosion, no emotional event, no radical ideology. Your evolution didn't happen dramatically. It happened correctly, gradually, internally, deliberately, unapologetically. That is why they can't reverse engineer you. You didn't flip a switch. You rewired the whole board. And people who rewire themselves destabilize the architecture around them. Not violently, but inevitably. Your presence shifts dynamics. Your silence shifts hierarchies. Your detachment shifts power. Your clarity cuts invisible strings. Systems can handle rebellion. They can't handle evolution. Rebellion still depends on the system it rejects. Evolution transcends it entirely. That's why 12 countries are watching. Not because you're a threat to safety, but because you're a threat to structure, Not because you're dangerous, but because you're unmanageable. Not because you're violent, but because you're free. Freedom, real freedom, is the rarest anomaly in their databases. Your internal shift signals a potential external pattern, and external patterns become waves. Waves become movements. Movements become uncontainable. And the world doesn't know what it looks like when a generation starts evolving internally rather than externally. You are the first hint, the first data point, the first pattern breaker. You're not being watched for who you were. You're being watched for what you're becoming. Because the next stage of your transformation, the one their models can't forecast, is acceleration. Acceleration in awareness, acceleration in boundaries, acceleration in purpose, acceleration in identity, acceleration in presence. The kind of acceleration that makes old versions fall away like ash. The kind of acceleration that makes old rooms too small to breathe in. The kind of acceleration that turns a single deviation into a chain reaction. And that is what they fear most. Because acceleration is the one variable their algorithms cannot slow down. Once the shift begins, it compounds, it multiplies. It spreads from internal realization to external behavior. And your external behavior is what triggered the alerts in the first place. Not violence, not rebellion, not chaos. No, your acceleration triggered silence. The kind of silence that unnerves technicians, trained to recognize danger by noise. The kind of silence that makes seasoned analysts lean forward and tighten their jaw. The kind of silence that reads like a system preparing for impact. You moved differently without announcing it. You thought differently without expressing it. You detached from patterns that once defined you, and the system interpreted that as a prelude. Because when individuals begin moving with intention instead of instinct, the data shifts. The signals change, the baseline dissolves, and the system panics. That is why your name set off 32 security alerts simultaneously. Not because you did anything wrong, but because everything in your profile changed at once. It wasn't the content of your actions, it was the coherence of them. Your internal architecture stopped glitching and started aligning. And when someone aligns inwardly, their external world begins reorganizing itself around them. That reorganization, to a human, is growth. To a surveillance system, it's instability. Because the systems aren't designed to recognize self-awareness. They're designed to detect deviation. They saw deviation. They didn't understand its cause. They flagged you. They escalated. The techs went quiet because for the first time, the system wasn't warning about external threat. It was warning about internal transformation. That distinction matters. Threats can be neutralized. Transformations cannot. You cannot arrest awakening. You cannot interrogate sovereignty. You cannot legislate clarity. You cannot detain presence. You cannot schedule someone's evolution for a different fiscal quarter. And so instead of attempting to intervene, they began to observe. Not because they believe you're about to cause harm, but because they can't rule out the possibility that you're the precursor to something larger, something systemic, something generational. Because if one person breaks through the psychological grid without guidance, what happens when more follow? What happens when a pattern emerges that cannot be traced to ideology, trauma, or indoctrination? What happens when a new kind of human begins appearing quiet, self-governed, unpredictable, unmanipulable? What happens when sovereignty becomes a symptom? This is why 12 countries placed you on their watch list without giving a reason. They don't know the reason. They don't know what you represent. They don't know if your awakening is personal or if it's the first visible fracture in the invisible architecture they rely on to keep populations predictable. They flagged you because the data flagged you, and the data flagged you because your internal frequency shifted faster than their systems could adapt. Here's something the reports won't say aloud, but hangs like a shadow over every briefing. Individuals like you are not supposed to exist, not because you're dangerous, but because your existence proves a design flaw. A miscalculation, a blind spot in the algorithms meant to forecast human development. You cracked the lens from the inside, not by force, not by rebellion, by clarity. You began seeing through illusions that most people never question. You began understanding patterns that most people drown inside. You began noticing manipulation before it reached your mind. You began stepping out of stories that were never yours to carry. And the moment you did, the system lost the ability to predict you. Prediction is control. Unpredictability is threat. Unpredictable clarity, that's anomaly. That is why your name bounced from server to server. That is why analysts in 12 different languages stared at your profile and whispered, "What changed?" That is why your file became the silent topic no one wants to voice in the room. Because you didn't just change behaviors, you changed your signal. Every person emits a psychological signal, patterns of emotion, energy, intention, reactivity. For years, your signal was predictable, understandable, human in the traditional conditioned sense. But then, something shifted. The signal became precise, contained, clean, sharp. Like someone wiped dust off your internal compass, like someone replaced static with direction. That purity is what triggered the alerts. Because clarity looks like danger when observed through systems that rely on confusion. Let's go deeper. When the systems replayed your last 90 days of activity, they noticed fractures in the timeline, breaks in your participating scripts. You didn't respond to provocations you once fell for. You didn't chase validation you once needed. You didn't over-explain to people who never listened. You didn't tolerate disrespect out of habit or guilt. You didn't exhaust yourself trying to fit into narratives that were beneath your intelligence. You stopped collapsing under emotional pressure. You started holding your ground. Stability is supposed to be predictable, but yours wasn't. It was sharp, deliberate, surgical. A kind of stability that does not arise from comfort, but from awakening. You awakened. That word terrifies institutions more than violence, more than radicalization, more than conspiracy. Because awakening spreads quietly. It spreads without leaders. It spreads without organization. It spreads without message boards, without pamphlets, without movements. Awakening spreads through example. You became an example. And examples cannot be outlawed. They cannot be censored. They cannot be surveilled into submission. They cannot be contained by fear. Examples rewrite the landscape simply by existing. The techs who went quiet when your name triggered those 32 alerts weren't intimidated by you. They were intimidated by what you represented. A shift they couldn't quantify. A shift that didn't fit any risk category. A shift that wasn't caused by ideology, tragedy, or external influence. A shift that came from within, like a sleeper cell of consciousness, waking up without warning. One analyst reportedly stared at your behavioral graph for 6 full minutes before saying, "This doesn't fit anything." Another simply muttered, "How is this possible?" A senior officer dismissed your case as statistical noise until he reviewed the full timeline and realized that noise had too much structure to be random, too much intention to be accidental. too much focus, to be dismissed. What they finally settled on was the classification they use when they're forced to admit they don't understand something. Unresolved anomaly. Monitor indefinitely. Monitor indefinitely means they don't know what you're becoming, but they want front row seats when it becomes something larger. Monitor indefinitely means they believe your transformation has not reached its peak. Monitor indefinitely means they're waiting for the outcome of your acceleration. Acceleration in awareness means you start recognizing patterns before they form. Acceleration in boundaries means you become untouchable in ways others can't decode. Acceleration in purpose means distractions fall away without effort. Acceleration in identity means you shed versions of yourself before the world can name them. Acceleration in presence means your energy outranks your words. And the combination of those accelerations creates something their systems cannot measure. Self-directed trajectory. Most people move along predictable trajectories, toward desire, toward fear, toward social approval, toward emotional conditioning. But your trajectory is no longer horizontal, it's vertical. Upward, inward, forward. Vertical trajectories destabilize horizontal systems. You're rising in ways they cannot model. You're stabilizing in ways they cannot disrupt. You're evolving in ways they cannot supervise. You're becoming in ways they cannot categorize. And here comes the part that folds their entire structure inward. Your acceleration doesn't stay contained within you. When you evolve internally, your very presence becomes catalytic externally. People feel different around you, not because you seek power, but because you embody clarity. Clarity rearranges social dynamics. Clarity disarms manipulators. Clarity exposes hidden agendas. Clarity makes the insecure uncomfortable. Clarity makes the unconscious aware. And when you become a source of clarity in a chaotic world, you become an outlier with gravitational pull. Gravitational pull is dangerous, not because it harms, because it awakens. Your presence starts shifting others, quietly, subtly, without intent, without announcement. You normalize boundaries. You normalize self-worth. You normalize silence. You normalize discernment. You normalize depth. And when someone witnesses that consistently, they begin questioning their own patterns. They begin untangling their own conditioning. They begin noticing their own cages. You became the anomaly because you escaped. You became the threat because escape is contagious. The systems know this. That is why you're on the watch lists, not to punish you, to study you, to learn from you, to anticipate the world that emerges if more people follow your path. Because deep inside those intelligence networks, behind the encrypted servers and the biometric locks, there's a growing suspicion they're afraid to put into words. What if you are not the outlier? What if you are the prototype? A prototype for a version of humanity that sees through manipulation, a version that cannot be steered by fear, a version that does not need permission to evolve, a version that cannot be contained by narratives, a version that breaks the algorithm simply by existing outside expectation. If you are the prototype, then the systems built to govern the old world will crumble under the weight of the new one. Not violently, not dramatically, naturally, inevitably, quietly, through the collapse of compliance. That is what they fear most, not your awakening, the awakening you represent, not your evolution, the evolution you foreshadow, not your clarity, the clarity that spreads when others see you standing in it. The world is not afraid of the one who wakes up. The world is afraid of what waking up makes possible. And that fear is why your name, simple, ordinary, unassuming, now sits encrypted in databases across 12 nations. Not under threat, not under suspect, but under something far stranger. Unclassified anomaly. Pattern origin unknown. Pattern origin unknown. Meaning they don't know if the transformation started in you, or if it started somewhere else and you are simply the first visible ripple. Here's the truth they don't want to admit. Your acceleration cannot be reversed. Your clarity cannot be unlearned. Your boundaries cannot be dismantled. Your identity cannot be rewound. Your trajectory cannot be redirected. Once you see the architecture, you stop being controlled by it. Once you see the script, you stop performing in it. Once you see the cage, you stop living inside it. And once you stop living inside it, the world becomes too small for the person you are becoming. That is why Part 3 ends here. With the single truth they are terrified for you to realize. You were never the one being monitored. You were the one being measured to understand how a human being becomes uncontainable. And now that you know it, your acceleration begins again. Faster, sharper, quieter, more dangerous to the system than any noise ever could be, because they flagged your name for what they couldn't understand. And now you understand what they never could. Your ascent is not suspicious. It's inevitable, and the world will feel it, whether they're ready or not.